Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to this week's episode of the Niche Cage Variety Show. We are from the Niche Cage, the www.the-niche-cage.com, home of big old Aotearoa sporting yarn and kōrero. We have just recorded our Blackcaps Patreon podcast. Shout out to all the Patreon whānau. Big up yourself. Patreon.com/EL Niche Cage, our Niche Cage, to join the Patreon whānau and support all the Niche Cage content. Had a Kiwi-NRL Spotlight video on Monday. Had our Blackcaps video today on Tuesday. And we finished that talking about the Blackcaps. Let me call it like a fundamental element of Blackcaps Test cricket, and culture. Because they, as we talked through it, I realized they won their 3 wins in New Zealand this summer against England, 2 against Sri Lanka. And I'd stretch it out further. I'd say their 2 draws in Pakistan featured this as well, was their ability to
I really agree.
Grind through long patches of Test cricket with reliable, hearty Kiwi performers. Like they're basically playing Test cricket like a bunch of Kiwis. Like they just are willing to fight. You've got lads opting to bowl into the breeze in Wellington. You've got just dudes willing to do anything that is required for the team and show up every day, grind. Like you win a session, we're going to win the next session. You win a day, we're going to win the next day. I think the Blackcaps had a win against England and 2 wins against Sri Lanka based on that. Like, I don't know, we said it in the Patreon podcast, they're not the most skillful or best team in the world, but they will win games just by playing cricket like Kiwis. And as I talk through that, the Breakers were a successful NBL team based on many of those ideas, a defensive identity, grinding through games, they'll bully you. They'll do anything. Like one of the best defensive teams in the competition. They went to a Game 5 in the NBL final series. And not to spoil my mangrove section here, but I mean, the Warriors have had a similar common thread through their first 3 games as far as their effort, their intensity, their ability to get into a grind and play out the 80 minutes. It's good to see those happening in winning performances.
Yeah, especially like the Breakers, for example, are a great example because they went away from that for 4 years and were quite bad. And then they came back to it and were instantly really good. Like you don't normally get the payoff so quickly. That's a rare thing, and it was more than one thing that was just suddenly aligning for that to happen. But it was part of it, and they certainly had that same, like, I don't know, gritty grinding mentality to get to where they went. And I always hesitate not to say the grit and grind thing because it's so synonymous with Memphis basketball, which is where Steven Adams has found a perfect home for himself, doing the exact same thing, because the stuff that he's been doing is exactly, I mean, like, he's a dude who will tell you himself he never really watched that much basketball growing up. He played it because his family was into it. There's like a bit of pedigree there, and he's obviously huge, so that helps as well. But he wasn't necessarily a major basketball fan as a kid, but he loved Mika Vukona. Mm-hmm. And he said that before. I've heard him say that on like American podcasts. They don't know who Mika Vukona is, but he said that. It's the same, like, Mika Vukona is maybe the archetypal Breakers player for that reason. And that's what the Breakers have gotten back into. It's what Steven Adams has always done in the NBA. And I mean, there are other ways for Kiwi sports folk to be successful, of course. It's probably a good thing if we can spread out and try. I think the whites behind me in the video are a pretty good example of a team that's had that, but sort of has reached a point where they need more than that. And so they're trying to develop also more technical players and stuff. But I mean, you still have to keep the heart of the team somehow. And I certainly think that was something that I think they actually did quite a good job of in the last World Cup cycle, considering it was a shortened cycle and they had a much younger team bringing through a lot of young players, to be able to keep a bit of that connection with the team's history and the traditional like sort of heart of the team. I think was quite impressive. Not something that paid off and get into the World Cup, unfortunately, but I do think it might be something that, as long as they get the right coach in place next time, will continue to help them out as some of those like sort of Kakache, Bell, Sarpreet Singh kind of age dudes get a bit older, more experienced, and can set that tone themselves.
Yeah, just chill out on your All Whites takes there. Like, you got plenty of All Whites coming up. Although I will say, common thread throughout the variety show, All Whites, football Ferns, they need a bit of pizzazz. They need a bit of panache. They need a bit of funk, where a lot of these other teams are doing well to win and be successful with those Kiwi fundamental elements, culture, mana. All Whites and football Ferns have those foundations, but to go to a next level, they need a bit of panache. They need a bit of extra razzle-dazzle, some would call it. Every Monday and Friday evening, we send out our email newsletter as well via Substack, thenishcase.substack.com. Today's Tuesday, yesterday was Monday, so we were just recapping the weekend sport. That's what we're doing, a Monday email newsletter. Get some, that's usually my space just to drop some Warriors reflections and then some other Kiwi-NRL bits and bobs, but I think that is the best place for me on a Monday morning, just to work through Warriors stuff, especially if they have a good performance, and that's what I did on the Monday, and that's what I also do in the Kiwi-NRL Spotlight videos for the Patreon whānau. So sign up, subscribe to the email newsletter Monday and Friday evening via Substack, and you've got the Patreon there as well with 2 extra podcasts every week talking NRL and Blackcaps cricket. And of course, the website, theniche-case.com. Check in every couple of days, every day, tell a friend. Cheer. Mindfulness, what do you got?
Mindfulness. I have I guess call it a poem by poet/novelist Richard Brautigan, who I've only recently discovered and kind of adore the man's work here. This is I hesitate to call it a poem. You'll see why, but I'm going to. It's called Karma Repair Kit, and it's just 4 lists for his Karma Repair Kit. Number 1, get enough food to eat and eat it. Number 2, find a place to sleep where it is quiet and sleep there. 3, reduce intellectual and emotional noise until you arrive at the silence of yourself and listen to it. Number 4, that's number 4. That's Richard Brautigan's Karma Repair Kit.
So number 4, for those not keeping up, was nothing.
You could call it nothing, or you could call it everything. I don't know, but just perfect silence. Peace. I don't know. Like the Zen experience summed up in words, which is the only word you can use is no words, I suppose.
I like it. I'll jot those down and just keep my. I got food. Yep. I can sleep. Yep. Quiet. Yep. Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bit of sleep.
Roger.
Combine it all. There you go.
Let's get into our Kiwi sports stuff here. Leading banger segment, headline, everything meaningful about Aotearoa sport. Feel like you've already dropped your all white stuff in this bucket, but I think you got more all white stuff, so have a crack.
Yeah, but more specific all white stuff this time. I'm just picking 3 players from the upcoming squad to face China who I'm most intrigued to see. I'm not necessarily saying the 3 best players or the 3 most influential players, just 3 players I'm very intrigued to see. One is Max Mata, because he's been in insane form over in Ireland. He's scored 5 goals in 6 games. He's the leading scorer through the first month and a half of the League of Ireland, playing for Sligo Rovers alongside Nando Penica, their teammates there. But it's not just the goals that Mata's scoring. It's also the way he's playing. He's holding the ball up nicely. He's bringing others into play. He's winning the aerial challenges and stuff. And frankly, considering Chris Wood comes into this tour on a little bit of a injury scare after he got a big kick in the knee in his last game for Nottingham Forest, I think he's all right. It just looked like one of those things where it was, bruising that swelled up around a joint, can't run on it, but will come down and be fine. And he didn't play on the weekend because it was against Newcastle. They said he wouldn't have played anyway, but it was against Newcastle, so he wasn't allowed to play because he's still technically on loan from them. Max Mata, if you don't want to give Chris Wood 180 minutes, Max Mata is the guy, the next best guy who is the closest in mold to Chris Wood, like as a pure number 9, not just a creative forward who might be able to play up front, but actually a guy who can play with his back to goal or facing the goal. He's obviously nowhere near as good as Chris Wood, and we don't quite know what we haven't really had a lot of All Whites playing in League of Ireland recently to know like how the standard compares. But he's in good form. He's confident, and he's a dude who's got one cap. It was against Lithuania quite a while ago, and I'm excited to see what he does, having been recalled. Similar story, but very different paths to get there. Marco Rojas, number 2. Marco Rojas, because he's now in Chile, he's just living his best life, in and out of the team for Colo-Colo, but that's a massive club. That's a top team in Chile. So you're going to have competitive places. You're going to have a competition for places there to have to deal with. So it goes. Rojas has tended to do pretty nice things when he has played, though. Like he's chipped in with assists at a decent rate. And I don't know. I get the feeling like he's in a good mind place to come back, and there's more to come from him at an international level. I don't feel like we've ever quite got the best of Rojas for the All Whites, and I just wonder if there's a bit of a I don't know how old he is. He'd only be 31 or 32, so he's hardly on the verge of retirement or anything like that. But I feel like there's a surge coming for him in an All Whites jersey, and hopefully this is the start of that. And then number 3 is Ollie Sale, because Ollie Sale has emerged as the number 1 goalkeeper for the All Whites. Danny Hayes sort of superseded him. He knocked Stefan Marinovic out of the Phoenix jersey for a bit, and then he knocked him out of the All Whites jersey as well. We've got a lot of goalkeepers and a lot of quite good goalkeepers at the moment. We don't necessarily have like a standout superstar. So I think there is a little bit of pressure on Ollie Sale to put in 2 good performances here, because he's had 1 or 2 shaky moments for the All Whites. Mostly, really just one. The goalie coughed up against Peru in that game. But he hasn't been at his best for the Wellington Phoenix this season. There was another big error from him on the weekend as they lost to Adelaide. I don't know. I feel like Ollie Sale, he's not been that long in the All Whites jersey, and I think he needs a couple big showings here to sort of fend off the competition, so to speak. And those are my 3 All Whites. I'm most intrigued to see how they perform in these upcoming games against China. What you got for your own take?
I believe this was a really fun summer of Test cricket. I had a lot of fun following the Blackcaps in Test cricket. Obviously, the 3 wins in a row is a major factor in this. 2 wins over Sri Lanka, win over England, lost to England, so the Blackcaps went 3-1 in New Zealand Test this summer. Had 2 draws in Pakistan, and I found those 2 draws in Pakistan fun. And I said at the time they were quirky and a bit funky because you're playing Test cricket in Pakistan over Christmas and New Year, which was a bit weird, but Blackcaps performed pretty strongly in that Test series. There's been a wide group of players used, and to come out at the back end of the summer, 3 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws, 3-1 record in New Zealand, climb up a couple spots in the World Test Championship ladder, which was fun as well. England Tests weren't a part of the World Test Championship, but they were quite entertaining and really fun tests to watch and follow along. You got the best Kane Williamson ever. This is the best version of Kane Williamson we've ever seen, which is obviously ridiculous in itself. Got some other funky performers. And I think I'm enjoying some Test cricket scarcity. Because, I don't like viewing things negatively. I like to flip it and try find a positive perspective, apply a bit of gratitude, because that always fixes everything. And I'm kind of grateful we have less Test cricket, specifically in New Zealand, over a summer, because every test is an event. Every test is awesome. And you don't get that with just playing a million tests like some of these other greedy nations do. Blackcaps Test cricket is concentrated, sugary joy. It's just been boiled down to like maximum flavor. Every test is just massive crowds. It's a fun environment. They're winning, they're having a bit of fun. So I actually enjoy the scarcity of test cricket as well. Let's get statistical. I feel like you're just going to throw out millions of Kane Williamson stats. So here you go.
Not millions, but I mean, there's the one I've got to start with. So Kane Williamson now averages 81.55 in Blackcaps Test victories. That's incredible. It was already really high, and then he's just had 3 games in a row in which the Blackcaps have won, and he scored 100 in all of them. One of them was a double 100. So it's gone up to 81.55 in Blackcaps victories. There is one player in Test match history with at least 20 innings and wins for their country who averages higher than 81.55. That player, and the average is like 130, so it's quite a bit ahead, but he's the only player with a higher test average over a decent sample size in victories than Kane Williamson. That man's name is Sir Donald George Bradman, 1908 to 2001, nicknamed the Don. So anytime there's a batting record and it's just you and Don Bradman, I think you're doing all right at this thing. This is the 40th test victory that Kane Williamson has been a part of. Let's do this pop quiz. Who do you think is first? Who is the player who has won the most test matches for New Zealand?
Tim Southey?
Good guess. He's on 42nd. There's one slightly higher on 44.
Vittori?
Vittori is in 6th on 34. More recently retired than that. It's obviously got to be Taylor. From the of course, Luteru, Ross, Taylor. 44 of them. So the top 5, Taylor 44, Southey 41, Williamson 40, Bolt 38, Latham 37. Those are the 5 players who've won the most test matches for New Zealand, all of the recent era. And then you get Daniel Vittori at 34. Needless to say, Tim Southey, by the way, has the most wickets in test wins for New Zealand with exactly 200. Tidy old average of 21.61 in test victories, although fair play to Monsieur Richard Hadley, who took 173 wickets at 13.06 in his 22 test wins. Everyone's stats look better in wins because that's why they won, but old paddles, that's just kind of ridiculous. It's quite insane. I think also quite insane from Kane Williamson, and you get to see there the 2 probably most influential Blackcaps test players of all time. Extremely valuable whenever their team wins. Like if their team wins, Kane Williamson is scoring runs or Richard Hadley was taking wickets. And not too many numbers.
Chad Bowes has been called up to the Blackcaps squad to face Sri Lanka, the ODI squad. And Chad Bowes has a Plunket Shield strike rate this season of 103.33. That is ridiculous. He's got a strike rate over 100 in all 3 formats this season of domestic cricket. The only bloke with a significant amount of runs and a higher strike rate than Chad Bowes is the one and only Colin de Gronholm. No shit. But that's because Chad Bowes has hit a couple of big old centuries. He hit a 105 off 98 deliveries for Canterbury. He's also got 118 off 82 deliveries. Canterbury's the best team. Chad Bowes has been called up to the Blackcaps. Maybe not because of his Ford Trophy and Super Smash batting, you know. Maybe it's because he's been banging centuries with a strike rate over 100 in the Plunket Shield. The prestigious Plunket Shield. Deep in the mangroves.
Sounds like Chad Bowes is the new Colin Munro, if that's what you're saying. Deep in the mangroves. Brooklyn Nets. I've been waiting to get this one out for a couple of weeks. I've had this one jotted down. The Brooklyn Nets are a very weird team at the moment. They're sort of fluctuating in their rotations, strange results, all this stuff. But let's be real, they traded their 2 best players mid-season. They're not exactly too worried about how this particular term turns out. General manager extraordinaire Sean Marks has had his reputation somewhat unfairly tarnished, I think, in the last couple of years due to risks that he took and you sort of live with the consequences of your actions there. It didn't play out the way they wanted. But let me just tell you right now why he is about to roar back into legendary status this upcoming off season, because this is not exactly the Nets going back to square one with nothing to work with like he inherited when he first took over. For starters, they are stacked with draftees. So draft picks get confusing because sometimes it's like, yeah, this team finishes above this record that translates and then someone's traded it there, or the other. Some are protected, some aren't. It gets a bit confusing, but suffice to say, they've got a lot of them. And that's despite trading quite a few of them to get James Harden as well when they first did that deal. So even if a lot of those draft picks, I suspect, will end up being relatively lowish first rounders, certainly not lottery picks, there's still, you got enough of them, you've got plenty of value there. And this team does know how to draft. And the Marks tenure, they've bagged dudes like Jared Allen, Cam Thomas, Karis LeVert, Nick Claxton, all without having high lottery picks. They can just do that again. Or draft picks, arguably even more valuable if you don't draft anyone with them. If you trade them instead as trade bait, as draft picks, flipping into other teams to fill out your packages for various other players. And guess what? They know how to get amongst that avenue as well. This is a team that certainly knows how to trade. Speaking of, what kind of players make for the most tradable intrigue? Well, superstars, obviously, but they just traded 2 of those already. They don't have any left. Other than that, 3-point shooters is always pretty handy. Perimeter versatile defenders, athletic big men. And these Brooklyn Nets just happen to be stacked with all of those. You got Michael Bridges, Cam Thomas, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Royce O'Neal, Yuta Watanabe, all of whom, I haven't checked the stats for a couple of weeks, so they might have changed, but all of them have been hovering above, if not above, then still around that 40% 3-point mark. Incredible 3-point shooters throughout this team. Patty Mills and Cam Johnson have both been above 40% in the past. Dorian Finney-Smith hugely improved as a 3-point shooter. You got Finney-Smith and Bridges in particular, outstanding defenders. Nick Claxton is an athletic rim-running big man who blocks shots. Might be best not to speak upon Ben Simmons just now, but maybe now is the time where you can actually get focused on coaching that dude without the spotlight of title challenges and playoff contentions and whatever. Actually get a bit more out of old mate Simmons. It's interesting as like a reset for the Nets, because I guess it is a reset for the Nets in a manner of speaking, but it's not a reset to day one where they didn't have any picks and maybe only 1 or 2 half tradable players back when Sean Marks built this thing up from the dirt. This is a reset to basically the moments just before they signed Kyrie and KD. Like, this is the alternate history timeline. They tried something, it didn't work. Now they're just going back to the previous safe point, pick up where they left off. Fresh team, exciting players on useful contracts, bit older this time, bit more expensive this time. But you know, the important thing that matters now is there is no pressure on the Brooklyn Nets to do anything by anyone's ideas other than the Holy Trinity: coach, owner, general manager. Those guys are calling all the shots. It's Sean Marks back in the territory. He knows best, and I, for one, cannot wait to behold what he does in the offseason.
I am deep in the Warriors mangroves after they had a pretty impressive win against the Cowboys. Last week, I highlighted how they had an impressive loss against the Roosters. Now they've had a pretty impressive win against the Cowboys. They are up to 4th on the NRL ladder, 2-1 record. Of the teams who have played 3 games, they'll be 3rd. So it's a pretty good start for the Warriors. And I believe that Tohu Harris best represents like Andrew Webster's style of footy that we've seen across the 3 games for the Warriors. Tohu Harris, first in tackles, barely misses a tackle, plays 80 minutes every game, fantastic passer. So you've got a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and a lot of defensive kind of cohesion in the Warriors at the moment, which is evident in Tohu Harris being perhaps the best defender in the NRL. Tohu Harris, also one of the best passing forwards in the NRL. And I think that's a key aspect of Andrew Webster's attacking strategies and shapes as a coach. You had Tohu Harris pass an inside ball to Adam Whenua-Blake, who made a break. Wade Egan went over for the try off an offload from Whenua-Blake. You also had a try where Dylan Walker passed it to Jazz Tavanga. And they're both bald and they both look like props. Like, I don't know if there's a I don't know if that comes into the equation, but like neither of them is really a prop under the like quintessential prop umbrella, but when they're both bald, they look like props. So I definitely put that away in my notebook. Like bald dudes just look like props, and they were both they played like props, and it was fantastic against the Cowboys. But Dylan Walker is a key player in the passing middle forwards. You've got him, who's throwing over 10 passes a game pretty much as a middle forward. You've got Tohu Harris, who's passing over 10 passes a game, usually as a middle forward. Like against the Cowboys, Jason Taumalolo had the most passes of the Cowboys forwards with 6. So I think it is a aspect of Warriors footy in attack that Andrew Webster's deploying. So you've got good defense, you've got physical play, you've got a lot of effort. That's what Tohu Harris is doing. He's making the most tackles. He's playing 80 minutes a game. Don't know how many forwards are doing that. Maybe Isaiah Yeo, maybe someone else. But he's also one of the best passing middle forwards as well. And you see that throughout the Warriors team. The centers are good passers. They play physical. Pompey, Williami, Vailea, they are very physical, but they're good passers. So they got the little offloads everywhere. What does Tamaite Martin do? He's a short side king. Scouts numbers as good as any other player in the NRL, and he's got all the passes. He's got the loopy Harbour Bridge pass. He's got a short ball. Against the Cowboys, he threw a cutout chest pass. Hands above the elbows, flicked it to the winger, cutout. Beautiful Tamaite Martin, and he's also everywhere on the field. He'll chase left to right, whack blokes in defense. It's all there for the Warriors. And finally, one last thing. Prior to the season and early in the season, I thought Tom Ale he's just got to try play the Griffin Neame role and shine in that role as an efficient bench forward. I think it's the Tom Ale role now, because he did it better than Griffin Neame on the weekend. He's been doing it better than Griffin Neame all season. And Tom Ale is like a secret weapon on the bench. Keep him a secret, Warriors, folks. Like Tom Ale's bloody awesome. He's basically 20 minutes, 11 meters per run, doesn't miss a tackle. So it's pretty good to have coming off your bench, especially midway through the second half when no one knows who he is, what he's doing. But all the Warriors folks know that that dude is going to skittle defenders, and then the Warriors can ramp up their attack. That felt like really good deep in the mangroves. Like I think both of us were lost in those mangroves, like hypnotized by the mangroves there.
Hypnotized by the reeds.
Not hard to do. Like not hard to do. Like if you
it's not.
If you start kayaking down a certain, like I was going to say branch of an estuary, but that's a weird way to describe it. If you take a couple of turns down a couple of estuaries, at some point they all look the same, and you don't know how to get out of those estuaries. Oh, it's a bit iffy.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Once everything starts to look the same, it always gets hypnotizing, no matter what the situation is.
A couple of questions.
Repetition, man, it's buzzy.
Did mention this at the top of the show, so I might have just spoiled the question, but I've got a sense that you feel the similar way about the Wellington Phoenix women and the football Ferns. What is the most obvious similarity between those two teams?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that isn't similar as well. Like each team have some unique complications or issues, or unique things that they're really good at as well. But just the one major thing that crosses over is quite clearly a lack of goal scoring. And the Wellington Phoenix have continually keep losing games 1-0 or 2-1 or whatever, because they can't quite put the ball in the back of the net as often as they should. Footy Ferns don't really create as many chances, but they're also playing at a higher level, so it's a bit different there. I'd also use that as an example for people thinking that picking a few extra Phoenix players might solve the football Ferns creative drought. It's like, well, the Wellington Phoenix don't score goals either, so that doesn't quite add up. I would also suggest, though, remember my my vitamin stats from last week was about how neither the All Whites nor the Football Ferns have scored a single goal in either of their last 5 international fixtures. I'd go further than just saying it's a Phoenix/Football Ferns crossover. I think it might just be a New Zealand football thing at the moment, with a couple of exceptions. But even then, Chris Wood hasn't exactly been in goal scoring form for the last 12 months. So it's might just be a thing we're going through at the moment, and hopefully we'll come out of it with a renewed vigor. Who knows? But that's kind of where we're at. I think just New Zealand footballers in general have not been scoring many goals, except for Max Mata, as I mentioned at the start. So, question back. Maybe the storyline of the entire NRL season so far has been the fact that a couple of Queensland teams have been one resurgent and the other one just, you can't be resurgent if you didn't exist before, but whatever that version is. Redcliffe Dolphins and Brisbane Broncos, both 3-0, leading the table. What are your best Kiwi-NRL angles from those two teams?
The Broncos, I see the Broncos are reflected in Jordan Ricky, and there's still this Broncos situation where like Dean Mariner, Xavier Willison are outside the top 17 right now, so it's going to be pretty hard for them to crack the top 17 when the Broncos are winning. Jesse Arthurs, I believe he might be a Hibiscus Coast junior, but he's playing for the Broncos, and to play NRL you need to run hard, and Jesse Arthurs certainly runs hard and does the basic roles as a pretty solid outside back, can play centre, can play wing. But Jordan Ricky, he is a very good edge forward. A lot of energy, a lot of effort. He shows up. He's always very physical. I think he's going to be a pretty consistent player for the Kiwis once he does make his debut. But I am curious how Jordan Ricky's season looks mid-season, because that's how I feel about the Broncos. We saw it, we've seen it before. The Broncos started crash hot and then faded. I'm curious, can Jordan Ricky sustain high energy footy? Believe he's played 80 minutes in every game. Because I'm curious if Jordan Ricky can do it, and I'm curious if the Broncos can also do it. Whereas I feel like the Redcliffe style is more sustainable. Because I don't know, it's not necessarily rooted in energy, and the Broncos feel a bit hyper, which I don't like. The players they have are game breakers, so that is the vibe, kind of game breaking, X factor, hyper activity. Whereas the Redcliffe are just a bit more settled and calm with who they are and what they do, and they've also got a bit more Kiwi-NRL juice, I reckon. The Bromwich brothers are playing their best footy. All these dudes are playing their best footy. You can go into all the Aussies. They're playing their best footy. Jermaine Sako, he's playing his best footy. Jeremy Marshall-King's playing his best footy. Pawasa Fa'amasili hasn't played yet. He'll probably play his best footy because the Dragons couldn't even give him a crack. And then you get him to Wayne Bennett, what do you know? He's got the best out of him. Connolly Lemuelu, he's playing his best footy. So it's all happening. All those dudes have elevated their work this season under Wayne Bennett. And I also love the fact this is inspiration for any young kid out there, or any older parent who's their kid might not be in the best situation. As long as you're talented and you're willing to do whatever it takes for that opportunity, you can make it to whatever level. Because we always hear about kids going to the best first 15 schools, the best schools here, they're coming through this academy over here, they're going to do this. Everything is peak performance from a young age. Connolly Lemuelu was going to Tangaroa College, and I believe both the Bromwich brothers went to James Cook College. Though you're Tangaroa College has got a bit of trendy buzz for their first 15 mahi, but they're not a dominant first 15 school in 1A. They're a plucky underdog first 15 school that overperforms and produces NRL talent, because Ben Iawelu is on a fast track to NRL with the Roosters out of Tangaroa College as well. So that's an Otara. James Cook High School is in Manurewa. I think Peter Hiku went there as well. And those dudes are shining at a high level. Lemuelu's playing at a high level as well. And as long as you've got the the ability to get there. It doesn't matter like what school you went to or where you're playing. As long as you want it, you can probably do it. One last question. Got to be quick here because that was a hot rant. What was your main takeaway from some of your Kiwi NBL research? Aussie NBL, but the Kiwi NBL angle. You're writing about that now. What was your main takeaway?
Yeah, well, I was writing specifically about the free agency stuff. So who's coming off contract, who's under contract for next year, just trying to get a gauge on the situations. There's some interesting stuff there. The Webster brothers both having mutual contract options with Perth Wildcats is pretty interesting. I don't know how that's going to go. Could keep both of them, could keep neither of them, but it's not like a team option or a player option. It's a mutual option, which you don't see that often. But definitely the most intriguing thing. So I started off writing about the Breakers. Then I brought in all the other various Kiwi players from last season and where they're at moving forward. But the most interesting thing is still the Breakers. You swing it back around. The fact is the Breakers contract situations, they have 4 players plus a DP under contract for next year. You got Isaiah Liafa, you got Dan Fortu, Cam Glidden, and Tom Bogdanovic, plus Alex McNaught as the DP. Liafa was the only one of those guys who was a major factor in the finals rotation. So everyone else, Liafa did start the last couple of games, but he wasn't necessarily a starter throughout the season. So if you look at it that way, their entire starting 5 is coming off contract plus the 6th man of the year. So all 3 of their imports, Abercrombie's off contract, Lowe's off contract. It's a little bit of a tricky one. They do have, I think they're in the best shape to recruit people now than they have been for a long time. Like for Modi Mayor, they're seeing what the Breakers can achieve. Abercrombie getting re-signed is surely just a matter of here's your contract, sign it. Like that's simple. Rob Lowe will be an interesting one because I think there is an argument to say he might get more out of himself as a player if he went to an Australian team, but he's done that once before. He did have a stint with Cairns, so there's some experience. And if I'm looking at players from like Kiwi players from other teams that they might want to recruit, I'm putting Hiram Harris at the top of that list because he's a free agent for Adelaide. He had a little bit of a drop in minutes this season and therefore a bit of a drop in production. But I looked at some of his other things, like he had a positive net rating, much better than it was last season. True shooting percentage was higher. I reckon there's definitely a case as well to say that Hiram Harris in a better situation. He might stay with Adelaide and get it there, or he might sign with another team. And if he does sign with another team, I think the Breakers should be high on that list. But yeah, pivotal offseason coming up for the Breakers. Though I will say the most important one, Coach Modi Mayor, he is under contract for 2 more seasons.
Signing Hiram Harris would be like signing Maratani Okore for the Warriors. Musical jam.
There you go.
Got to highlight Leonard Charles. He's got a new EP called Heaven. Leonard Charles, groovy Kiwi tunes, so check that out. Your musical jam.
The Unknown Mortal Orchestra album came out, so that was cool. A little bit different than what I expected because the singles were real bangers, and the album itself is quite long and definitely got that grooviness to it as well. I love the sort of like shiny production of it, but there are like a couple extended instrumental tracks and stuff, so it's not quite the like hits throughout that you expect. But I definitely dug it, and I expect it's also one of those albums that will grow as I listen more. Albums from H. Hawkline, Shana Cleveland, highly recommend those. I don't remember if I hyped up that one by the Veils as well, who I think technically would count as a Kiwi band. Main dude, sort of half English, half New Zealand, but he's tends to be caught in that category. The Veils album is very good, so chucking all of those into the rotation, you won't go astray.
That is the Niche Cast Variety Show. Big up yourself, love yourself, kia kaha, stay beautiful. We'll be back with the Niche Cast on Thursday. Chur chur.